the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have called to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Father, let your blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. And this we beg in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Please be seated. Item number 2, the oaths and affirmations of allegiance. I therefore call on Mr. Dion Earlston Smith. First, Senator, would you come forward? Hold the Bible in your hand and affirm or give the oath, whichever one you want.
Either one.
Either one. Your choice.
So if I start on the Bible, doesn't matter.
The difference between this, that one says, "So help me God." The oath says, "So help me God."
This
And the affirmation doesn't. Everything else is the same.
No problem.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I, Dion Smith. I, Dion Smith, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to the law. So help me God.
Mm-hmm. And you sign there. Welcome to you. Thank you. I now call on Mr. Tarek Jalil Dunbar Smith to take. And you will swear on it.
Yes.
Mhm. So, affirming.
I, Tariq Jalil Dunbar Smith, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to the law.
Thank you. That's how you need to sign. And welcome to you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you too. Senators, we can congratulate these two senators for their appointment. Will join me. And I would like to also acknowledge the families of these two candidates in the gallery. Welcome to you all. Continuing with our orders of the day, we now have item number 2, the confirmation of minutes. And I call on Senator Tannock at this time.
Good morning, Madam President. I
Good
move
morning.
that the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 23rd of July, 2025 be taken as read.
Is there any objection to that motion? Senator Cunningham?
It's thank you, Madam President. It's just a small matter of misgendering Senator Fubler on page 4.
Madam
Not the
President.
first or last time, I'm sure.
Madam President, can we amend the minutes? Can I move that the minutes be amended to
Yes.
correct the agenda of Senator Fabula on page 4 as noted by Opposition Senate Leader Cunningham? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That
I'll
being,
move.
thank you. If there are no other further amendments, I now move that the minutes of Wednesday, the 23rd of July, 2025 be confirmed.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The minutes are confirmed. Thank you, Senator Tannock.
Thank you.
Moving on then with our orders of the day, we have messages. Mrs. Beal.
There are no messages, Madam President.
Thank you. Item number 4, reports of committees. There are none. Item number 5, announcements. Senators, we have apologies from Vice President John White and the Minister of Education, Crystal Caesar, who have indicated they will be absent today. We move on now to further announcements, and the first set of announcements is in the name of Senator Lindsey Simmons, Junior Minister of National Security. Senator Simmons, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I hereby present for the information of the Senate the National Violence Reduction Strategy Blueprint. Senators may access copies of the report on their tablets and/or Parliament website.
Thank you, and I believe you have a second announcement.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I hereby present for the information of Senate the Financial Assistance Amendment Regulations 2025 as made by the Minister responsible for financial assistance in exercise of the power conferred by Section 21 of the Financial Assistance Act 2001. Senators may access copies of the regulation on their tablets and/or the Parliament website. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lindsey Simmons, in your capacity of Minister of Youth, Social Development, and Seniors. The next set of announcements is in the name of, the first one in any case, in the name of Senator Misha Fabler, the Junior Minister of Tourism, Transport, Culture, and Sport. Senator Fabler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I hereby present for the information of the Senate, the Bermuda Sport Anti-Doping Authority, the annual report for the year ending March 31st, 2025. I also have the Bermuda Sport Anti-Doping Authority's audited financial statements for the year ending March 31st, 2025. And just for brevity, I'm going to omit the date because I have several. There's also the Bermuda Civil Aviation Authority's annual report for the end of the fiscal year, the Bermuda Civil Aviation Authority's annual report for the end of the year, March 31st, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And then also the Bermuda Tourism Authority's consolidated financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2024, and the Bermuda Tourism Authority's 2024 year in review. That's quite a bit, but I encourage senators to review copies which will be accessible on their tablets and or the Parliament website.
Thank you, Senator Fabler.
Thank you.
Item number 6, notices of motion. There are no notices. Item number 7, petitions. There are none. Item number 8, statements. We have one statement, and that is in the name of Senator Misha Fabler, in his capacity as Junior Minister for the Cabinet Office and Digital Innovation. Senator Fabler, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Madam President. And today I'm pleased to report on the successful completion of Bermuda's first government accelerator program. This initiative, undertaken in partnership with the government of the United Arab Emirates, marks an important milestone in our ongoing effort to modernize public services, strengthen the public service, and deliver better outcomes for the people of Bermuda. Madam President, the UAE's accelerator model is based on the principle that government should not take years to solve problems that can be addressed in 100 days. It emphasizes cross-departmental collaboration, disciplined goal setting, and the delivery of visible results in a short time frame. In September of 2024, the Honorable Premier accepted the UAE's invitation for Bermuda to participate in this global initiative. And in early 2025, we launched our first cohort. The first step was to identify the challenges. To qualify, each had to align with the Public Services Strategic Plan 2024 through 2027, involve more than one ministry so no single entity could simply direct another, have resources available to deliver, and be possible to resolve within 100 days. After reviewing 5 options, 3 challenges were selected for acceleration. And the first is connecting personnel information, integrating payroll, pensions, HR, and IT systems so that a single update would automatically cascade across all systems. an initiative near and dear to my heart, given my day-to-day occupation. The second initiative was creating an e-profile, designing a unique government profile for service users, enabling one login, one profile for residents and businesses when interacting with the government. And the third is revamping the gov.bm website, redesigning the website into a modern, mobile-friendly, accessible gateway to services with accurate content and stronger search. Madam President, to prepare a core team led by the Deputy Head of the Public Service, Dr. Jennifer Etrard Sterling, received training from the UAE facilitators. This enabled them to cascade the approach through workshops with the accelerator teams and executive sponsors. In February, each project established a challenge note, sponsors were appointed, and acceleration teams were formally launched. From there, the work was structured around milestone workshops, a launch, day 25 and day 75 check-ins, as well as a day 50 progress workshop. And finally, the closing workshop held last Monday, September the 8th. Between these sessions, teams met intensively. 48 team meetings, 24 cross-agency encounters and consultations with over 130 stakeholders, contributing nearly 400 human hours of effort. Madam President, the process itself is worth noting. Each team was required to map key stakeholders and consult with both internal and external users, co-design solutions with those affected, ensuring transparency and buy-in, and report progress regularly to executive sponsors and adjust as necessary. Outline who would own each initiative, how the work would be maintained, and how the solutions could be scaled up to other departments and services. In other words, these are not 100-day experiments. They are the beginning of lasting reform and ensure that the government's vision of an agile and accountable public service becomes a permanent reality, not a pilot or experiment. Madam President, to demonstrate how seriously Bermuda treats this partnership, while attending the United Postal Union Congress conference in Dubai last week, Minister Diallo Rabane and his team arranged to meet personally with senior leaders of the UAE Accelerator Program, including Mr. Abdallah Al-Jarwan and Dr. Radia Al-Hashemi. That in-person engagement allowed the minister and his team to discuss the hurdles faced, the solutions developed, and to reinforce Bermuda's commitment to embedding this model into our public service culture. This step has strengthened the partnership and ensured that Bermuda is seen internationally as a credible partner in government innovation. Importantly, the UAE facilitators were so impressed with Bermuda's execution that they have indicated during our recent in-person meeting that our experience is being considered to be used as a case study to guide other countries adopting the accelerator model. evidence shows that governments which adopt proven international models while tailoring them to local needs achieve faster, more reliable reform. Bermuda has the opportunity to position itself alongside leading innovation nations. Madam President, this is only the beginning. In the months ahead, the personnel sync will be deployed, the e-profile will move toward integration with other systems, and the website revamp will roll out to the public. The lessons learned from this first cohort will be applied to new accelerator projects, ensuring that the public service continues to improve and innovate. I close by thanking our partners in the UAE, the Accelerator core team led by Dr. Atroyd Sterling, the sponsors and executive owners, and especially the many public officers who demonstrated that even within the everyday pressures of their day jobs, they can deliver transformative change in just 100 days. In doing so, we are not only fulfilling the commitments set out in the throne speech, but also building a public service that is fit for the future, innovative, people-focused, and trusted by all Bermudians. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Senator Fubler. Moving on with our agenda then, it's item number 9, the introduction of bills. There are none. Item number 10, the first reading of public bills. Senators, the following public bills have been received from the Honorable House of Assembly and are hereby read for the first time. Their titles are respectively Beneficial Ownership Act 2025 and the Proceeds of Crime Miscellaneous Amendment Act 2025. Item number 11, first reading of private bills. There are none. Item number 12, questions and question period. Senators, we will now entertain questions on the statement that was delivered by Senator Misha Fubler entitled The Government Innovation with a 100-Day Acceleration Program. Would any senator care to ask questions? Senator Cunningham, Opposition Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the Junior Minister for delivering that statement. I think it's interesting to see collaboration with the UAE, with any international government. I've got some questions around accessibility, and I guess the first question would be, which groups were consulted on any changes with specific regards to the website?
Thank you. I imagine there are several parties, and I will endeavor to provide an exhaustive list in the near future.
And I have a supplemental to that.
Yes, you have a supplementary.
So I think where I was going with that was, how will government ensure that our seniors, those with lower digital literacy, and people without reliable internet will have access to those services?
Just noting the question down. The second one was around access for senior citizens and those less technologically literate, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you. While I await clarity from the technical officers, I will highlight that the in-person services will continue to exist and that we offer through a number of organizations, including the government directly, technological literacy programs that I would encourage people to avail themselves of. I would also encourage the general public, those of you who have or who are that nephew or a niece who is the tech person in the family, to work with your seniors. I do know some folks, they quite like that trip into town to kind of socialize and deal with a business or government in person. But I do admit, as the resident tech person in my household, that I make sure to put the effort in, not just to do the task for them, but to kind of walk them through the steps, teaching them to fish, so to speak.
You have a second question?
Yes, so on that vein, we're obviously not all going to be on the tech avenue, but I think we've gone overseas to the UAE with collaboration with them. I think my question would be, what steps are being taken within Bermuda to ensure that we have Bermudian expertise in the digital government or, digitization to make sure that we're not dependent on outside partners?
Thank you, Madam President. This one I can speak to. I will draw your attention to one of the statements I made prior to the summer break around the IT apprenticeship program. The specific name eludes me at this time, but we did speak through how we are actively recruiting Bermudians to fill these roles, the technical roles throughout government.
So then, okay, supplementary to that, and I believe that there were only 3 on that internship program or apprenticeship program, but with that, were any Bermudian companies or entrepreneurs consulted or involved in those projects from a Bermuda standpoint?
Thank you for the question, Madam President. I will endeavor to capture the list of names of external companies, if any, although my understanding of the statement is that it was intended to be an internal initiative, existing Bermuda government employees. But as I said, I will confirm.
Thank you, Senator Fabler. And I believe we have Senator Dion Smith, who wants to also ask a question on this statement.
Thank you.
Senator Dion Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Junior Minister. With regards to, I would like to say, as an IT professional, my concern about the profile as it relates to security and privacy. Are you able to speak on that?
To the specific details, no, although I would advise that when you're looking for more specificity in the answer, a written submission is generally more appropriate. It'll give us some time to give you a fulsome response.
Supplemental. In addition to that, concern of what sort of protocol will this come under GDPR, ensuring the right for data, the ability to correct or delete information from one's profile that is stored?
That's your second question. Supplementary, sorry.
And so I can't speak to its conforming to GDPR, but I will venture a guess that it does conform with PIPA, which does have accommodations for requesting what data has been collected about you and its removal.
That's right. And just in regards to support as far as hosting,
Smith, D. Smith, restate the question so I have
Yes.
appropriate understanding.
Please restate the question.
sorry, the last question is with regards to resources for future, the allocation of hosting of the said system that is being implemented, and also the support and future support of the application that's being developed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I will encourage Senator Smith to review the statement, possibly in writing, as it did highlight that sustainability and support were items that were required to be submitted as a part of each of the initiatives.
Thank you, Senators. Would any other senator care to ask?
Sorry, I do have a response from technical officer as well around the accessibility. Vision Bermuda was consulted in regards to accessibility, and I believe the statement did speak to making it more accessible to those who are visually impaired.
Thank you, Senator Fabler. Would any other senator care to ask questions on this statement? Hearing none, then thank you, senators, for your questions, and thank you, Senator Misha Fabler, for your responses. And before I move on, I would just like to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Craig Cannoneer, JPMP, Opposition Whip, who's in the gallery. Welcome to you, sir. Moving on then with our agenda items. We do have questions that were submitted by Senator Cunningham for written responses. Perhaps, Senator Cunningham, you would read each question in turn.
Each question in
Well,
turn, and then
yes, read the first question and let him respond.
so these were posed to Senator the Honourable Crystal Caesar, Minister of Education, which I understand Madam AG will be answering today. But number one was, will the Honourable Minister please confirm for the Senate whether the Education Reform Unit is still operating and what its current staffing complement? And if the unit has been disbanded, on what date did that occur, and to which department has the unit's staff and responsibilities been transferred?
Minister Wilkerson, yes.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, members of the listening audience. The response to the first question is yes, the Education Reform Unit is still operating with a complement of 9 staff.
And can I ask a supplemental?
You can certainly ask a supplemental to that question.
Given that the minister isn't in the House, in the Senate, I will ask my second, which is, given that the Government Learning First website, various ministerial statements, and I believe election promises have committed to legislation on an education authority, can Madam AG update this chamber as to the current status of that legislation, timeline for its introduction, and whether the authority will assume full operational control from the department?
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. I can say, certainly in my role as Attorney General, the drafting for the Education Authority is in process. There are certainly some policy reconsiderations that inform what that looks like. So it's impossible to answer the last question until those are satisfied.
I'll move on to question 2.
Yes.
Question 2, will the Honourable Minister please update the Senate on the status of the Signature Schools programme, specifically outlining how many signature learning streams have finalised curricula, the number of staff who have qualified to deliver this curriculum, and how many learning partners are currently engaged with the programme?
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. The response is, across Cedar Bridge Academy and the Barclay Institute, there are 4 signature learning programs, 19 streams, and 44 qualified teachers. All curricula for years 10 to 13 are completed. Curricula are also reviewed on a regular basis and will be enhanced if needed based on feedback in alignment with evolving industry standards. Sandys Secondary Middle School has started signature learning programs in education service and hospitality and tourism services. Students at Sandys are receiving a general introduction to both SLPs and streams focused on specific areas which are covered in the introductory year within each signature will be implemented for next year. At Sandys, 2 qualified teachers are delivering the SLPs, and the curricula for the future years needs to be developed. There are 21 signature partners for the signature learning programs with signed MOUs, and there are another 6 or 7 partners pending. That's pending the finalization of their MOUs. I have been provided with a chart of the signature programs, what the pathways are, the teachers, and what portion of the curricula have been completed. so I may be able to, some of that may come and supplement. I realize that this was an oral question. The way that the response has been formatted, I will check with the minister. I don't think there'd be a problem in providing this to you in writing.
So you move on to your third question.
I have a supplemental to that.
All right.
If Madam Roger can answer it. I think it's how does government intend to measure the success, monitor and measure the success of the signature programs to ensure that they're delivering tangible benefits for our students and ultimately meeting the expectations of where they're going with the community?
Thank you. I cannot answer as to the specific accountability matrix, but I think one would assume that students are tested. We've already indicated that the programs themselves will be reviewed against changing industry standards as well to ensure that programs remain current and relevant to the needs of the industries that they purport to serve.
Thank you. And I have a third and final question, which was for written response, which read, will the Honourable Minister please provide the Senate with a report on the readiness of all public primary, middle and senior schools for the start of the September 2025 term, including whether each school has a full complement of teachers, whether the school buildings and facilities are fit for use, and whether any other measures have been taken to ensure a healthy and safe learning environment for students and staff?
Okay. So I'm not certain if you would like for me to read the response for the listening public, or you have, and
Received it.
apologies to Senator Cunningham. I didn't realize that one was written. So I saw it in a separate package. So I forwarded it to the clerk this morning. Thank you.
Yes. No, I have the written.
Okay. Thank you. And obviously, if there are supplementals out of the written, I'm happy to receive those and get them answered.
So thank you very
you.
much, Minister Wilkerson, for answering the questions for the Minister of Education. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam President. Sorry, and just I would like to say I'm grateful to the ministry
Yes,
for providing the responses in the minister's absence.
indeed, we all are. Thank you very much. Before I move on, I would just like to acknowledge Mrs. Vanus Memori from the Register of Companies, who's in the chamber today. Welcome to you. We will now then move on to the orders of the day. And the first order of the day is the second reading of the Beneficial Ownership Act 2025. And that's in the name of the Senator Crystal Caesar, who's the spokesperson for finance. And that response will be dealt with by our Minister of Justice and AG, Mr. Wilkerson. When you're ready, you can present the bill.
Thank you, Madam President.
We're going to do them both? Yes, that's fine. I thought so. Okay.
Madam President, I move that the provisions of Standing Order 25 be granted so that the Senate may now proceed with the second reading of the bill entitled Beneficial Ownership Act 2025.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, just for the purpose of order, at this point, I will also move that Standing Order 25 be granted so that the Senate may now proceed with the second reading of the Proceeds of Crime Miscellaneous Amendment Act 2025.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you. I will then proceed with the Beneficial Ownership Act. Thank you. Madam President, the bill before the Senate. Oh. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Beneficial Ownership Act 2025 now be read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the bill before the Senate is the Beneficial Ownership Act 2025. This bill establishes a legislative framework for a central register of beneficial ownership information of companies by enhancing Bermuda's current beneficial ownership regime in accordance with the revised Financial Action Task Force, FATF, Recommendation 24, and consolidating the regime under the framework of a single act. Madam President, in 2017, Bermuda created a transparent beneficial ownership regime in relation to various categories of legal persons to ensure that it satisfied its internal obligations under the FATF international standards. In particular, the Companies Act 1981, the Limited Liability Act 2016, the Partnership Act 1902, and related corporate acts were amended to require legal persons, except those exempted from the application of the act, to obtain beneficial ownership information, maintain an up-to-date and current beneficial ownership register at the registered office, file such information with the Bermuda Monetary Authority, the BMA, and notify the BMA of any changes. Beneficial owner is defined under the various pieces of legislation to align with the FATF definition. Madam President, in 2018, Bermuda was assessed by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, CFATF, and found to have a robust and transparent beneficial ownership legislative regime. In March 2022, FATF, however, strengthened the international standards on beneficial ownership of legal persons to better prevent and deter the misuse of legal persons. In light of these revised FATF standards, this bill aims to ensure Bermuda's continued compliance with its international obligations by further enhancing its current beneficial ownership legislative framework and consolidating the various corporate acts under the framework of a single act. The bill, as part of this streamlining process, also aims to provide for the transfer of Bermuda's central register of beneficial ownership information from the Bermuda Monetary Authority to the Registrar of Companies. Madam President, the bill makes provision for the appointment of the Registrar of Companies as designate of the competent authority, the Minister of Finance to hold and maintain the central register, and to have powers to discharge the functions conferred upon him by the bill or regulations made thereunder, and to issue and update any guidance related to the bill. Additionally, the gatekeeping function currently performed by the BMA will also be transferred to the Registrar of Companies. The bill empowers the registrar with the authority acquired to administer this gatekeeping function. Madam President, the bill also makes provision for the broadening of the current definition of beneficial owner to align with the revised FATF international standards. The definition of beneficial owner under the bill has therefore been expanded now to apply to any individual or individuals who meet any of the specified conditions detailed in the bill. Madam President, pursuant to the transfer of the register to the Registrar of Companies, the bill provides for the requirement for legal persons to whom the bill applies to file their beneficial ownership information with the registrar instead of the BMA. The bill also provides that the minister may, by order, exempt a legal person from the requirement to file their beneficial ownership information with the registrar. Madam President, the bill also empowers the registrar with the authority to disclose information held on the central register to specified competent authorities and obliged entities for the purposes of enabling or assisting in the exercise of their statutory functions. Madam President, the bill further provides that the ministry may make regulations, A, relating to the registrar's approval of a person as a beneficial owner of a legal person for the purposes of the bill, B, for applications requiring the registrar to refrain from disclosing the beneficial ownership information pertaining to a legal person in prescribed circumstances, C, for prescribing fees for any function or service performed under the Act or any regulation made thereunder, D, for the reporting of discrepancies in beneficial ownership information by persons to whom the registrar has disclosed such information, and E, for actions to be taken by the registrar following receipt of a report of discrepancies in the beneficial ownership information. Madam President, on the 18th of July, 2025, the government tabled before the lower house a bill entitled the Beneficial Ownership Act 2025, which in effect represents Bermuda's continued commitment towards ensuring that it satisfies its international obligations as a member of the FATF global network, as it aims to further enhance this jurisdiction's beneficial ownership and transparency legislative framework to align with the revised FATF international standards. Madam President, when the bill was first introduced, the government was in the process of accommodating final stakeholder feedback with a view to ensuring that the final legislation reflects both technical requirements and practical considerations in advance of the launch of the central register to be held and maintained by the Registrar of Companies. We're pleased to announce that the consultation process is completed. Madam President, Bermuda has had a long-standing gatekeeping approach, which operates as a market entry control aimed at mitigating the risk of criminal elements and their associates holding an interest in legal entities carrying on business in Bermuda. In effect, it operates as a reputational safeguard and strategic differentiator, emphasizing Bermuda's focus on quality over quantity as it relates to our corporate register. Moreover, it supports the accuracy of our central register as recognized by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force assessors as part of Bermuda's fourth round mutual evaluation, and therefore plays a role in ensuring rapid and efficient access of accurate beneficial ownership information to competent authorities and foreign counterparts. Madam President, currently the responsibility for administering the gatekeeping regime resides with the BMA as controller of exchange under the provisions of the Exchange Control Act 1972 and the Exchange Control Regulations 1973. However, on the transfer of the Central Register to the Registrar of Companies, the registrar will now assume responsibility for administering the gatekeeping function. Madam President, the bill also contains amendments to Clause 17 of, this is reference to the July bill. Fortunately, this House has the completely updated bill. But that new clause deals with disclosure of beneficial ownership information by the registrar to persons specified for the purposes of enabling or assisting in the exercise of their statutory functions. Madam President, Clause 18 previously provided that the registrar shall maintain a secure search system by which access to the information on the central register may be disclosed. This has been redrafted to focus on disclosure of the information, and it is well established that Bermuda already maintains a secure search system through which beneficial ownership information is provided to competent authorities and our foreign counterparts. Regulations will be made to provide for how access by competent authorities to beneficial ownership information may be facilitated by the Registrar of Companies. So those regulations are not before us today, Madam President. In respect of the commencement of the Act, Clause 27 of the July bill provided for the Act to come into operation on assent, which specified paragraphs in the schedule coming into effect on such days the minister may notice in the Gazette. A new Clause 28 now addresses the consequential amendments by empowering the minister with the discretion to repeal or amend any such current provision in any law or instrument to ensure consistency with this bill by order, subject to the negative resolution procedure. Clause 29, which was previously Clause 28, now reads, "This Act shall come into operation on such day as the minister may, by notice in the Gazette, appoint," removing the reference to an instant operational date on assent with specified deferred commencement for scheduled provisions amending various laws. Madam President, before closing, I would like to advise this Honorable Senate that the access to beneficial ownership information held on the Central Register will not be provided to persons claiming a legitimate interest. However, Bermuda remains firmly committed to enhancing transparency in line with evolving international standards. Accordingly, I can confirm that as of July 2026, Bermuda will implement a framework to provide access to beneficial ownership information to persons who can demonstrate a legitimate interest. Madam President, the development of this framework will be subject to extensive consultation with industry. It will take into account guidance provided by the UK government, as well as illustrative examples contained in the 6th Anti-Money Laundering Directive, as well as the fundamental rights of individuals as guaranteed by the Bermuda Constitution and protected by its domestic policy and data protection laws. Madam President, it is anticipated that amendments to the Beneficial Ownership Act will be brought forward to provide that the minister may, by order, specify additional persons or classes of persons who may be granted access to the information on the Central Register. where the minister is satisfied that such persons or classes do have a legitimate interest. Madam President has already stated the detailed criteria for legitimate interest, and the process by which it will be demonstrated will be set out in future regulations, ensuring clarity, fairness, and alignment with international best practice. And Madam President, I would take this opportunity certainly to acknowledge in the room, you've already acknowledged Mrs. Venus Memori, and I'd also like to acknowledge Gwen Johnson from our chambers. They have worked diligently on this piece of legislation, which is important to Bermuda's forward progress, and particularly as we go toward the fifth round of our mutual evaluation.
Thank you, Minister Wilkinson, AG, who's speaking on behalf of Minister of Caesar in her absence. Yeah.
I would take this opportunity to clarify, Madam President, Minister Caesar and I split the finance portfolio in relation to bills that relate to NAMLAC readiness. So this actually does fall under my
it does fall under your
yes.
remit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Would any senator care to speak? Senator Tannock, you have the floor. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, AG. I was glad to hear you say that because I was afraid that you were going to refer my questions to Minister Caesar. So I'm happy to have you in the room. You know, I understand what we have to do and what the government is trying to do here. But my concern, I do have a couple of questions. And the first is the fact that under the definition of beneficial ownership, with regard to trust, it does not mirror the definition of beneficial ownership with trust as we know it under the proceeds of crime regs. So as you would well know, under the regs that come under that legislation, beneficial ownership is broadened to anybody that has an interest in the trust. That is not the case in this beneficial ownership definition. Can you explain why the decision was made not to have whoever has an interest in the trust also listed as a beneficial owner? Because as we all know, settlers and trustees, quite frankly, will not ultimately be the beneficial owners of the trust. So if one were to look that up, it would show that Tawana Tannock is the trustee of a property on Harbor Road that I have no beneficial ownership in. That's just an example. I do not. But I wanted to know why it was decided that it would not be persons with an interest in the trust, but those who have control over the trust, because that, as I mentioned, does not actually coincide with our own definition under trust. So that's my first question. And then my second question is with regard to access and ensuring legitimate access. However, my concern is, have we in effect prevented those who need legitimate access from getting it because of the fact that we've tightened this window so much? And what I mean by that is, often when you have to do your KYC on a company, if you're part of a company's compliance team and you have a new client come in and you have to do KYC, one of those things is ensuring that you know who the beneficial ownerships of that company are. And you don't just do that by asking the corporate entity itself, you actually do that by making a search. Right now, I don't know if we have the ability, if you have to do KYC and compliance on a client, do you have that ability, or how do you do that under these regs? Because what we would ordinarily do is do our best to do a diligent search and find that information. But my understanding from reading these regs is even if we find that information, we can no longer pass it on. So my concern, that's just my second question, and it's twofold. It's not three questions. The first is about people who have a legitimate interest to search prior to July 2026 when other things will come in, and then those who have the legitimate interest to search because they have to do KYC and compliance, their ability to pass that information on to their compliance team or whoever is coordinating that. That's my third one. And then, but that's my second question, sorry. And my third one was when I saw the beneficial ownership and that proceeds of crime were being partnered together. As I mentioned, there is a bit of a distinction in the way that this legislations address beneficial ownership. But, and I know the AG is probably going to quote me on this, I thought that this would be an opportune time to talk about unexplained wealth orders and the way that we can use those with proceeds of crime and beneficial ownership. And I'm sure there will be a million motions to adjourn on the state of crime in Bermuda and deaths, this, that, and the other. I expect them. But at this time, when we have the tools and the legislation that would allow us to explain unexplained wealth, and then that can be checked against the Beneficial Ownership Act, it seems perfect because, you know, we do have an epidemic of crime in this country. So I wondered if there was any idea or thought by the government with beneficial ownership, that register, how that would be used if we were going to go down the road of unexplained wealth orders.
Thank you, Senator Tannock. Would any other senator care to ask questions? Senator Cunningham, Leader of the Opposition, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I think on the face of it, the opposition was in another place last week agreeing with this. And obviously we have my learned colleagues from the House, Compliance and Legal. So I listened carefully. But I think from my perspective, this is obviously just very important that we maintain our international business reputation. Ultimately, I think we want less red tape so that the processes of vetting and everything aren't entirely onerous. But I think from my perspective, one of my questions is, when will the Registrar of Companies fully take over from the BMA? And then, you know, secondary to that, what are the timelines for each of the phases? And are there any penalties or consequences if those timelines aren't met? And then I guess finally, are we sure that this, and I know that you mentioned some updates, but are we sure that these satisfy international monitoring bodies so that we're not triggering any grey listing or any other negative consequences? But thank you very much.
Senator Tannock, you.
Sorry. Yes, Madam President, my apologies. I did have one other question, and that was there any, sorry, I realized the AG is busy. Yeah, sorry. I did have one further question, and that was there any consideration given to having a lower cap for politically exposed persons? So as you would be aware, other jurisdictions like the UK have actually a 5% interest or controlling interest for politically exposed persons. We have kept it at 25%. But was there any thought or consideration given in Bermuda to have for politically exposed persons a 5% interest to trigger disclosure?
Thank you, Senator Tannock. Would any other senator care to ask questions? Hearing none, then.
Thank you,
Madam
Madam.
AG is over to you.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay. Okay. The starting with Senator Tannock's questions, the first one in relation to, I think she was identifying a disconnect between the beneficial ownership definition in the trust legislation versus what is here. I am advised that the definition of beneficial ownership in the case of trust already meets the FATF standard. So yes, alignment is under consideration for possible amendment for the future, is the question, that's the answer. In relation to access, oh, I think it was, okay, this was the subpart of question one. It was about what legitimate access would look like. And I think that the question is that as the paper said, that part of the regulations is going out to consultation. So we haven't landed on that. I mean, certainly, I've had the opportunity to join a meeting, and I believe he's going to be on the island this week, Minister Doughty from the UK, on this issue with the other overseas territories. And I think that's to the later question from Senator Cunningham. It's, do we know if we're meeting the mark of other jurisdictions? It's actively under consideration. It is a body of work that is being led by the UK to ensure that its overseas territories meet the required standards. The unexplained wealth orders, a very interesting point. It is a body that is of work that is under consideration. I had the opportunity to attend the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force plenary at the end of May, and had the opportunity to hear from other jurisdictions where they have that legislation enacted, and how it is operating, an opportunity to hear about challenges and pitfalls. And we are considering whether it's something that would be appropriate for Bermuda. So it is being looked at, as well as the question around PEPs.
Thank you, AG. I have no further questions.
And I didn't have an answer. When will the ROC fully take over the register? I think Venice could be a doctor. The 1st of November is the date that the ROC will fully take over the register. Thank you. And I think I answered the question around any concerns around gray listing if we are not meeting the standards. Yes. Thank you.
That's all the questions. Thank you then, Minister Wilkinson, for presenting this bill. You can now move it. And before you do, I'd just like to acknowledge former Senator Maurice Foley in the gallery. And on behalf of the senators, we welcome you. So it's left to you to move the bill now.
Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Beneficial Ownership Act 2025 do now pass.
No, do that in a second.
Oh. I move that the bill entitled Beneficial Ownership Act 2025 now be read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, following suspension of Rule 26, I now move that the bill entitled Beneficial Ownership Act 2025 now be read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill do now pass.
Is there any objection to the passage of the bill? No objection. The bill is passed. Thank you, Minister Wilkinson, for presenting the bill.
And thank you, Senate colleagues, for your thoughtful questions.
Absolutely. You can now move on to the second bill, which is the Proceeds of Crime Miscellaneous Amendment Act. Thank you.
Madam President, I'm pleased to. We're not tabling, are we? Madam President, I move that the bill entitled Proceeds of Crime Miscellaneous Act 2025 be read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, members may be aware that Bermuda's anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing, and counter-proliferation financing regime is of vital importance to our country's economy and to the health of its robust financial and international business sectors. Accordingly, policies have been pursued with the intent of providing strategic direction to the government and other specified stakeholders for the enhancement and effectiveness of Bermuda's AML, ATF, CPF regime. To that end, Madam President, members of the National Anti-Money Laundering Committee, NAMLAC, continue to work collaboratively with the Ministry of Justice and other governmental partners to implement actions that will ensure Bermuda's framework remains effective and adheres to international standards. Madam President, as part of the ongoing enhancement of Bermuda's AML, ATF, CPF framework, the Ministry of Justice and NAMLAC have considered the recent changes made to the Financial Action Task Force's 40 recommendations and 11 immediate outcomes, otherwise referred to as the FATF standards. And we have identified provisions within various pieces of legislation that require strengthening through amendments. Senators will be aware that Bermuda is preparing for the next mutual evaluation of its regime, which will commence in October 2026 with on-site visits by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force assessors in April 2027. Madam President, this evaluation will be based on the revised FATF standards. In addition to new FATF requirements, legislative amendments are required to address any issues previously identified in our last, that was the fourth mutual evaluation, as well as any other enhancements to legislation. This also affords the opportunity to address technical and administrative matters. Madam President, this bill seeks to amend the Proceeds of Crime Act 1997, otherwise referred to as POCA, and the Proceeds of Crime Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorist Financing Supervision and Enforcement Act 2008, referred to as POCA-C, and the Proceeds of Crime Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorist Financing Regulations 2008. It will allow the Minister of Finance to make provisions for the enhancement and effectiveness of Bermuda's anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing, and counter-proliferation financing regime in adherence with international standards. Accordingly, particular policy objectives are as follows, Madam President. First, proliferation financing risk assessment amendment. The revised FATF Recommendation 1 requires competent authorities and supervisory authorities to coordinate activities to identify, assess, and understand Bermuda's proliferation financing risk and to take commensurate action aimed at ensuring that these risks are mitigated effectively. The amendments to Section 49.1 of POCA provide the legislative basis for this proliferation financing risk assessment. And I would add, Madam President, that the risk assessment for proliferation financing is actually being done. I've been made to understand that a report will be issued shortly, but these amendments give the legislative grounding for its requirements. Second set of changes around NAMLAC statutory members. The proposed amendment to Section 49(2) of POCA reflect the inclusion of the permanent secretary of the Ministry of National Security as a statutory member of NAMLAC. So heretofore, the PS for national security was not a statutory member. This measure now is in the furtherance of collaboration and oversight necessary toward comprehensive outcomes. Thirdly, the procedure for canceling registration amendment. The proposed amendment to Section 13 of POCA C is to require publication in the Gazette of a notice of every cancellation of a registration of a non-licensed AML, ATF regulated financial institution or regulated non-financial business or profession. This amendment is aimed at ensuring consistency with the requirement in respect of licensed financial institutions. Changes around the fourth set of changes are civil penalties amendment. The current provisions limit the power to impose civil penalties so as not to provide sufficient deterrence for violations. As such, the bill amends Section 21A to remove reference to subsection 3 and repeals subsection 23, thereby enabling civil penalties to be imposed for all breaches of the POCA regulations. The fourth set of changes are around supervisory guidance tools amendment. The bill inserts a Section 5(2)(a) in the Supervision and Enforcement Act to clarify that a supervisory authority may issue rules, codes of conduct, or statements of principles on compliance. This in turn ensures that these guidelines are up to date and consistent with what they are intended to address. Six, the technical correction amendment. The technical amendment to 42A1 sub C corrects the reference so that it clearly points to the Fund Administration Provider Business Act 2019. And finally, 7 relates to the Financial Group Advisory Input Amendment. The Section 42B1 of POCA is amended to add the term supervisory authorities, which expands who may advise on the designation of financial groups. Madam President, finally, I draw attention to Clause 4 for the weighted adds to these enactments. It amends Regulations 11 and 13 of the Proceeds of Crime, Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorist Financing Regulations 2008. Regulation 11 broadens the scope from a banking institution to an AML, ATF regulated financial institution, as well as inserts a definition of correspondent relationships, which addresses one of the essential pillars of the AML ATF regime. Furthermore, Regulation 13 is amended to extend the prohibition of entering into a correspondent relationship with a shell bank to all AML ATF regulated financial institutions. Madam President, as I did earlier, I'm again compelled to acknowledge the effort of those who contributed to this succinct but consequential legislation. It is an important milestone in maintaining the health of our financial institutions and, by extension, the overall health of our economy, and to safeguard the reputation of Bermuda as one of the world's outstanding international business jurisdictions. And our Senate colleagues would recall that I previously brought a ministerial statement outlining these changes and also outlining that the amendments were going out to consultation. It's taken a while to get back here because when I thought consultation was complete, there was yet another round. So we went out to all stakeholders. And then once the draft was done, it had to go back out again. And certainly, I think sometimes when those certainly entities who are impacted by the legislation, when they read the draft, they may see things that, that they have comment on. And so we allow time for that to happen. And certainly in that regard, I appreciate the opposition's willingness to go all the way with this today, understanding the timeliness that's required for it to be in place by the end of September. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister Wilkerson, Minister of Justice and Attorney General, for the presentation. Would any senator care to speak on this bill? Senator Cunningham, opposition leader in the Senate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I recognize the timeliness of this, given all readings of the bill today. And having only seen this last night at 5 p.m., excuse me, but I just want to say that I believe the opposition would support the objective of this bill. Ultimately, it speaks to our reputation as an leading international financial center and our ability to maintain those frameworks, especially for AML, ATF, and obviously proliferation, countering proliferation financing. So I think it is in our best interest to make sure that our legislation aligns with evolving international standards. I did have one question based on the requirement to publish cancellations. Will these notices, so it talked about gazetting, will these notices include reasons so that people, the industry, can understand the basis of regulatory action? Ultimately we believe in transparency, but I'm just wondering if context will fall short. And then I don't know if my learned colleague at the back is going to speak, but I look forward to the response and to seeing how the House deals with this, but you have my support.
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. Would any other senator care to speak on this bill? Hearing none, then it's back to you, Minister Wilkerson.
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. In relation to the notice of cancellation, it is not the intention of the legislation that the reasons for cancellation would be published as well. But I think it's important in the regime of transparency that parties know if an entity that they intend to deal with has met the requirements to be canceled. One of the things that's not particularly dealt with here is the full set of regime around appeal. And I think that it would be detrimental to publish reasons for a cancellation if a party has the ability to appeal that finding. Thank you.
Senator Cunningham.
Sorry, I do have one further question, having just seen a note here. You mentioned stakeholder consultation, and I just wanted to see whether you had spoken to all of the relevant stakeholders and whether they were all on board with the proposed amendments.
Yes, the stakeholder consultation has been exhaustive. And I think that the last round of changes were from the edits from the BMA. Yes, thank you. And I would also add, in this process, you've heard me refer to the NAMLAC committee. That committee has a body which is kind of a policy and legislative body. So whereas in chambers, I have my own legislative committee, which will look at a piece of legislation when it's in its final draft form to ensure for cabinet that it's fit for purpose and that it's what we agreed. But the policy and legislation committee, they will review it and they were the group who said it needed to go out for a second round. Yes. So I'm very satisfied that it's been widely consulted on. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Wilkinson. It's left to you now. Pass your bill.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the bill entitled, what are we entitled? Proceeds of Crime Amendment Act 20, Proceeds of Crime Miscellaneous Act 2025 now be read a second time.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you. Madam President, I move that following the suspension of Rule 26, that the bill entitled Proceeds of Crime Miscellaneous Act 2025 now be read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill do now pass.
Is there any objection to the passage of the bill? No objection. The bill is passed. Thank you, Minister Wilkinson, and thank you all senators who participated.
Thank you, colleagues.
We'll now move on to our orders of the day. Item number 14, motions, there are none. Item number 15, congratulatory and or obituary speeches. Would any senator care to speak? Yes. Senator Lindsay Simmons, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to say condolences to the family of Miss Ann Webb. She was a staunch Devonshire PLP supporter, namely Devonshire North. She was very meticulous in how she ran her constituency. She was actually stated being better than the computer, our van system that we use. She had notes, and when they had an election, her notes outdid that computer. She was successful in getting seats for Dame Lewis Brown Evans, our past leader, Mr. Frederick Wade, was in current MP, Deala Rabin, and our former MP, Mr. Glenn Blakeney. She was a staunch PLP supporter. She is the last of a dynasty in Devonshire that started it. And so to her family, I give my condolences, and I want to salute Miss Ann Webb for what she did for our party and Bermuda and the Hill. So thank you, Miss Webb. I also want to give condolences to the family of Miss Renee Lawrence. I had the opportunity of working alongside Miss Lawrence. I know her son. Condolences to her son and her granddaughter. And, you know, she was big in the Derby. I also sat with her when I first sat on the board for the Bermuda government scholarships. And she is meticulous as well with making sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. So to her son Jordan and the family, you have my condolences. I want to give condolences to Miss Effie Fox's family. I met Miss Fox many years ago when my sister and her daughter Samantha Fox were at the Barclay Institute together. She was a beautiful soul. So to Samantha, her children, and also Miss Fox's son, I give my condolences. Also to my aunt's family, Miss Brooks Maynard, to her daughter Denise and Lavon. You have my deepest condolences on the passing of your mother. And lastly, but not least, I want to give condolences to Bishop. I know him as Neville Smith. He was one of the most genuine person that I have met. So to his son Lamont, his son Lauren, and to his daughter Tiffany, my deepest condolences to the Radnor Ray Christian Fellowship family. My sister Pastor Jana Bean and my brother-in-law Kenji Bean worked closely with Pastor Neville Smith, Bishop Neville Smith, sorry. And also, you know, it was just a few short months ago that he was with my family with our in our time of need, and he actually did the funeral for my father. So for him to go just a few months later was a shock, and it saddened my whole family. But thank you for being not only a bishop, but what he did in Bermuda. He worked in government for years, started off at the post office, but he was a genuine soul, and he is going to be greatly missed by many. He was one of Bermuda's greatest leaders in my estimation. So to his family, my deepest condolences. I hope him and my daddy are up there laughing it up together. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. Would any other senator care to speak?
I'm sorry, Madam President. One more thing. I'm sorry. I just want to say, because I forgot, we're just back here. I want to say congratulations to all the students for returning back to school. As the chairman of Cedar Bridge, I was actually away for the CPA conference, so I wasn't there for the first day. But congratulations to all these students, and I hope that this year we have a beautiful year, all schools around Bermuda, and the students get all the knowledge that they need. And I know that the Minister of Education is making sure that the children have what they need to do what they have to do. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Simmons. Senator Dion Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like to reiterate the same as Senator Lindsay with regards to Bishop Neville Smith. He actually was a family pastor, and also my parents, Howard and Violet Smith, went to his church. Myself, we performed IT services for Retna Road Christian Fellowship. And I just really want to give a heartfelt condolences to his family, the church members, and the people of Bermuda. He was well known, a very good person of character. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Smith. Senator Fubler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to start out by associating myself with the condolences to the Webb family. I made sure to make my way down there for her homegoing this past weekend, and I wanted to highlight her extensive efforts to the Elliott Primary School, a place that my grandmother was a long-time serving educator as well. And also in doing a little research around her contributions to society, I noted that she was also involved with the cooperative grocery store. And as I've mentioned several times here in the Senate, cooperatives are a form of business near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to highlight that as well. Also, to some constituency condolences, I'd like to send condolences to the Young family of Mr. Lionel Young, the widower, and his daughter Maria Sharp and sons Derek and Alan on the passing of their wife and mother, Josie Ann Young. And also condolences to the family of Edith Simons, both the Simons and Butterfield families, and a thank you to her for her services to the Bermuda Telephone Company. And finally, I'd like to send condolences to Gladwin Henry Dewey Trott. Condolences to the Trott family. I was acquainted with Mr. Trott through his daughter, Jessica, and I enjoyed our conversations. We often exchanged pleasantries and discussed kind of life and times at the Belco power plant, where he was a long-time employee, respected retiree, and influential in the formation of the electricity supply trade union. And so, again, condolences to them as well. And would be remiss of me to not also provide congratulations to the friendly societies, especially Alexandrina Lodge, who hosted, I think about a month ago now, the Good Sportsmanship Award awarded in the name of Clarence Orster Darrow, of whom I am a descendant. And so even though I had quite a busy day that day, I believe there was the constituency 29 back to school event. I made sure to make my way down to Alexandrina Hall as well, where they recognized Zico Burgess for his good sportsmanship during Cup Match. And for those of you who are unaware or who may have missed some of my motions to adjourn in the past, the friendly societies were influential in the formation of Cup Match. One could argue that we would not have it without them and their persistence. And so on that, congratulations to both of them. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Fubler. Would any other senator? Senator Lauren Bell?
Thank you, Madam President. I just would like to take the opportunity to extend congratulations to the recently named 6 recipients of the Department of Workforce Development's 2025 Overseas Graduate Scholarships. These recipients included Faden Douglas, Sanjay Ibel Allwood, Jacada Francis Hollis, Yasmin Smith, Malaysia Roberts, and Maisha Sharif. Madam President, these recipients were each awarded $10,000 and are pursuing studies in areas essential to Bermuda's long-term workforce needs and include areas of studies such as political science, finance and business administration, allied health and human services, as well as hospitality and tourism. Madam President, in addition to these overseas graduate scholarships, the Department of Workforce Development has also reintroduced the Dame Jennifer Smith Scholarship. As we are all aware, Dame Jennifer Smith served as the Premier of Bermuda from 1998 to 2003, becoming the first woman to lead a political party to victory. And she guided the Progressive Labor Party into government and was the first female deputy speaker of the House of Assembly. This scholarship was valued at $10,000 and was redesigned and is aimed specifically at inspiring future generations to pursue excellence in political science, public policy administration, communications, or education. We can all agree that these are essential fields, are central to Bermuda's social, political, and economic development, and it reflects Dame Jennifer's legacy of leadership and service to Bermuda. Madam President, I extend the heartfelt congratulations to Jace Fraser for being this year's recipient of the Dame Jennifer Smith Scholarship. Madam President, we recognize that the success of our students is fundamental to Bermuda's long-term stability and resilience, and the government is proud to provide opportunities to those that foster both academic and professional growth for Bermudians. I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to each of these recipients on their accomplishments and wish them every success in their studies and their future careers. Madam President, I would also like to congratulate the Joint Labor Committee on this year's Labor Day celebrations, which was held on Monday, September 1st at Union Square. For those who are in the listening audience who are not aware, the Joint Labor Committee is a subcommittee of the Bermuda Trade Union Congress, otherwise known as the BTUC. And the BTUC comprises of 7 affiliate unions and worker associations, which represent approximately 9,000 workers in Bermuda. Now, the theme for Labor Day was Labor is the Link, which highlighted the essential role that labor plays in supporting the Bermuda that we know and are proud of today. Now, despite that on and off again rain that negatively impacted some of the planned events, I recognize that many of my Senate colleagues were in attendance and had the opportunity to connect with representatives of the trade union movement who are responsible for representing the workers of Bermuda and ensuring protection and benefits are protected throughout. So again, I want to extend my congratulations to the BTUC for yet again another successful Labor Day celebrations. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lauren Bow. Senator Tawana Tannock, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I would like to take this minute to extend my condolences to my cousin who lost her son to violence in August of this year, and also to all of the families and all of the parents and extended families who have lost their loved ones to gang violence or to any violence. I can tell you that from my homestead in Hermitage Road, since the 10th of July last year until this year, we have lost 3 young men within a 1 mile radius. That's 3 young men in one neighborhood. from the house that I was raised in, from my father's family's house. So, and we're not unique, right? A lot of neighborhoods are going through that right now. And so, when I was trying to explain this to my mom, who was at the hospital with my cousin after her son got shot, she said, "I don't understand. Why don't these kids realize what they're doing?" And I said, "Mommy, you have to think about it as if they've signed up for a war that we're not a part of. And in a war, people die, right? And that's something that they've accepted, but the families haven't accepted. And unfortunately, what have we now seen, right? As of yesterday. Now that war extends to what wars never used to do unless they were terrorists. It extends to families. So while I send my condolences to my family and my cousin, I send it to all families who are touched by this. And for those families in Bermuda who haven't been touched by violence, well, you're lucky and you're fortunate. And I don't want to be a doomsayer, but you need to hope that it's not just a matter of time. So this is everybody's issue. So condolences to the family of my cousin and to all the families who have suffered this loss.
Thank you, Senator Tannock. Would any other senator care to speak? Yes. Senator Tariq Dunbar Smith, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon to the listening audience and to my Senate colleagues. I just want to send a few condolences out to a few folks. Firstly, Richard Chin Aldridge. Very dear to me. He was my neighbor for many years. He passed away on the 2nd of September, Ms. Aldridge was raised in Devonshire, but for the last 40 years, he resided in Warwick with his wife, Jennifer, and his daughter, Stephanie. He also was an examiner at TCD until his retirement a few years ago. I would like to, again, extend my condolences to Jennifer and Stephanie, as Ms. Aldridge was very dear and near to my heart. I'd also like to offer condolences to the family of Alice Talbot, Nee De Silva. Mrs. Talbot was a business lady in Hamilton in the store of her daughter for over 20 years, Sabrina. She was a devoted mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She left a legacy that her family will vows to emulate for the rest of their lives. Also, a constituency condolences to the family of William Benjamin, also known as Squiggs, a good friend of mine who passed away this past July. I have a congratulatory statement for Mrs. Florence W. Maxwell. On July 12th, the Bermuda Youth Library was named the Florence W. Maxwell Library. Mrs. Maxwell was the
Beyond his family, he was big in the community, especially in the scouting movement. He was fondly known as Baloo of the 19th Bermuda Cub Scouts and mentored countless young people. So on behalf of my Senate team and the One Bermuda Alliance, we'd like to extend our condolences to Catherine, Max Robb, and his entire family. And I would also like to take this opportunity, it would be remiss of me not to extend my congratulations to the new leader of the One Bermuda Alliance and leader of the opposition, Mr. Robert King. He was elected, as you will be aware, at our party conference on September 6th. And I think his leadership comes at an important moment for the One Bermuda Alliance. So I look forward to the direction and energy he will be bringing. And with that, I would also like to warmly welcome my new colleagues. Thank you for your warm welcomes to Senator Tariq Smith and Dion Smith. It is an honor to serve alongside them, and I look forward to seeing how valuable a contribution we can all make together. And finally, I will echo some of the former congratulatory good luck wishes to wish all Bermuda students all the very best as they begin their new academic year, those starting primary, middle and senior schools in Bermuda, as well as those obviously going overseas. Having been touching base with some of our students overseas, especially those going away for the first time, a lot of them are feeling a little, that they're trying to find their way. And I want them to know that they are supported, they are valued, they are very missed. And we look forward to them coming home one day with their skills and experiences that they have learned from overseas. So wishing all our students a very best of luck for the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cunningham. Is that everyone? And any Senator Tannock?
Yes, sorry, just a quick note to piggyback on Opposition Senate Leader Cunningham's comments, and to extend a hearty welcome to the new OBA senators. I look forward to working with both of you, and to also say just publicly for the record how much I thoroughly enjoyed working with Senator Maurice Foley. As the listening public may not know, because there are no cameras, Senator Foley and I actually shared the same bench. So you have tall shoes to fill, Senator. But it was a pleasure, as we were both starting this journey together, to look to each other for reassurance. And I found him to be warm, caring, and most of all, really passionate about change and progress for St. David's and Bermuda as a whole. So best wishes to Senator Foley, and I will miss you as my bench partner.
Well said. I think everyone has spoken. So, Minister Wilkerson, it's up to you.
Thank you, Madam President. Perhaps I'll start at the end, and because maybe it is a bit of a condolence, and join Senator Tannock in which is not normally for the government to do, but to lament the loss of an opposition senator. But we did enjoy our interactions with Senator Foley, who was just so balanced and passionate. I think it is about his portfolios, and I think that in this chamber we've made relationships that certainly will continue outside of it. So, Madam President, I will go back to put that in the category of a condolence in a sense. I'd like to join certainly with colleagues already who have given condolences on the passing of N. Webb. She was, as Senator Simmons has pointed out, she was a stalwart in the Progressive Labour Party, and I think back in, perhaps 2003 and up to recent years, she kept saying, "Well, I'm not going to retire until I can run your campaign." Well, you know what? It was too long a wait. She was a beautiful person who had I remember actually canvassing with her in Devonshire. I was new to it, but the way you did it is you went in people's houses and you had a cup of tea. It was not a phone call. It was not, ticking off a script, and then it was you went in and you had a cup of tea. So just it's the passing of an era, I believe. Join also in the condolences for Alice Talbot. Alicia, her granddaughter, has been a valuable part of our team at the Ministry of Justice. Very talented and passionate girl, and and Sabrina is also someone I count as a friend. So I was very sad, and I knew that Alicia's grandmother had been sick for a while, but to hear of her passing. And finally, in relation to the condolences, last but certainly not least, joining Senator Simmons in the condolences for Bishop Neville Smith. I was out of the room, but I believe Senator Dion Smith might have spoken of him. Certainly, he was foundational to our family, and he was my bishop. I was saved in the old Radnor Road Church in 1993, and he baptized me by water at Shelley Bay. He counseled me through my divorce, when that was a very challenging situation. And you have the impression, I think, as a younger person that, divorces don't line up with, what we understand to be in the Bible. And Bishop was such a sensitive and wise man, quiet and wise in all of his ways. And he was that person that, because he was so quiet in his ways, and Senator Simmons alluded to this, and a jokester all the time, you were forced to sit back and study him. And, he was one that you study and you learn by. And sometimes we know that you can win by playing the game above board and with niceness and with grace. And I think, that was his lesson to, those of us who looked up to him and who studied after him. So definitely very saddened to see his passing, but the homegoing service was so joyous, and because we know where he is, but he was comfortable, with his going, and his family were completely comfortable as well, and I think that made it easier, I think, to take last Friday. So on to congratulations. This morning, I had the distinct pleasure of giving the opening remarks at the Bermuda Compliance Professional Association Conference. It started this morning at 8:45, and I just want to congratulate again that body. I mean, we've been here today talking about two pieces of legislation: the Beneficial Ownership Act, Proceeds of Crime amendments, which are squarely in the remit of this group of professionals to make sure that this jurisdiction meets the mark for international compliance. So to see that there was a day for them to also share and learn and upgrade their skills and also go up to personal best practice was a joy to see. Senator Cunningham, I know, would be interested, I'm sure she is aware of the launch of the Compliance Academy at the Bermuda College next week. And I know that you'll be counseling many of the students that you service into that career path. And so, in my day, our day, even, the tracks looked like this. And now the tracks for, it's not underwriting or law or, or claims. When we think about, the kind of insurance and financial services space, this compliance opportunity as a professional career is clearly something that is, ripe for development. And I think it will bode the jurisdiction very well as we see a whole group of Bermudians take up those posts. Yeah. And finally, in some of the same vein, Madam President, I was over during the break privileged to attend the Bermuda College for the launch of the Bermuda Academic Journal of Research. And I was blown away by the level of research, world-class research coming out of Bermuda, and the professionals in Bermuda carrying that out. Presentations were made by Dr. Karika Weldon in relation to her study on cancer, which will have impact for the whole of the Caribbean region. We heard from scientists and researchers on mental health studies in Bermuda amongst young people. And that also was quite eye-opening, to say the least, Madam President. So I wish that organization well as we begin to highlight other ways that Bermuda can be a leader to the world. And Senator Simmons has reminded me at the Bermuda College as well, we also participated at the graduation ceremony for the Future Leaders organization. And it was certainly really inspiring to see a group of young people, many of whom admitted they were incredibly shy to get up in a room and make a presentation, to go forward with, areas of deportment presentation, and learning in modules through the summer. So thank you, Madam President. I said finally already, but this is the final. Senator Tannock mentioned gun violence, and I resonate with the comments that she made. And it is true that gun violence in Bermuda is everyone's problem. On an island of 22 square miles and 1 degree of separation between us, no one will be immune from the impact of this. And, I've been in all kinds of forums and chats, and there are some people who say it's an issue for the Ministry of National Security or the Ministry of Justice. And I say to this chamber and to members of the listening public, this is everyone's problem. So let's please think about how we can do and be better as a community. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson, AG, and Government Leader in the Senate. I would just like to associate myself with the condolences that have been expressed for Ann Webb, for Renee Lawrence, and for Bishop Neville Smith. I would also like to associate myself with the congratulations to Mrs. Gosh, where have I got it? Anyway, sorry. Let me just leave that at the moment. Sorry, breaking thought. The congratulations to Florence Maxwell for being named coordinator of the library. I think that's a wonderful event for her, and I wish her well, always going forward. With that said, now we'll move on then to item number 16, adjournment. And Minister Wilkinson, AG and Government Leader in the Senate, it's over to you.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that this House adjourn until Monday, the 29th of September.
Would any senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Senator Lindsay, Senator, you have the floor.
Madam President, honorable senators, I rise today with a heavy heart and a spirit burdened by sorrow. In the last 5 weeks, Bermuda has been shaken by tragedy after tragedy. We have lost 3 lives to gun violence, and 2 more of our sons have been injured. And yesterday, we lost a mother, a woman who is not only raising a family, but building a business, shaping a future, contributing to the life of this island. Madam President, she was someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone's neighbor, and she should still be with us today. Her life was precious. Their lives were precious. And today, as we close the business of this Senate, we cannot move on as though these losses are simply a part of our ordinary days. They are not. They are tragedies that cut to the heart of who we are as people. Madam President, about 5 weeks ago, I was driving through Court Street, minding my own business, going to pick up somebody. I happened to drive through, or not drive through, but drive up to the scene just as it happened. I heard a grandmother scream for her grandson laying there dying. I got out of my car, and honestly, Madam President, seeing that scene is something I don't wish on anyone. It happened at 4, just after 4, Madam President. I I was at the scene and I didn't even know 2 other people had been shot. My attention was on one young man. We can't think this is normal, Madam President. Madam President, when violence strikes our small island, it does not happen in isolation. Every life lost sends shockwaves across Bermuda. Yes, I know people say we're immune to it now, but we really aren't. Yesterday, I drove to the exact same scene where just 5 weeks ago I stood. We feel in our homes, in our churches, in our workplaces, and on our streets. Families are broken. Children are left without parents, and an entire community is left to ask, when will this end? Madam President, the truth is, none of us are untouched by this. Bermuda is way too small for us to say, it doesn't affect me. I want to say again, 3 of the people that have been shot in the last 5 weeks, this young man I taught, 2 are gone, and 1 is in the hospital. These are our people, Madam President. This is our island. Every gunshot tears at the fabric of who we are. Madam President, when a life is taken in Bermuda, it is not just one family that suffers, it is all of us. We are too small, too connected, too intertwined for us to ever believe that violence is someone else's problem. These are our children, Madam President. These are our neighbors. These are our people. Madam President, I want to say directly to the families who are grieving today, you are not alone. We see you, we mourn you, and as leaders, we must do everything in our power to ensure your loved ones are never forgotten and that their deaths are not in vain. But Madam President, to be honest, words are just not enough. We need healing. We need to rebuild trust. We need to remind our young people that their lives matter, that they have worth, that there is a better way than picking up a gun. Today, I do not want to speak about statistics, but about humanity, about the mothers who will never hear their sons come through the door again, about the children who would never again be tucked in at night by a parent, by the daughters that will never dance with their fathers at a wedding, about the families who must now carry the grief that they should never had to have bared. And I also want to speak about the fear that grips our communities, that makes our young people believe that carrying a weapon is safer than carrying hope. Madam President, we need to carry hope. The fear is real, and it is our responsibility to replace it with trust, opportunity, and most of all, love. We need to spread the love. To the families grieving, we see you, we hear you, and we hold you in our hearts. We are committed to honoring your loved ones, not by forgetting, but by fighting for a Bermuda where no one else has to suffer as you do now. This is a moment for unity, not government alone, not police alone, not churches alone, but all of us together. Each one of us has a role to play in mending what has been broken, to listen to the pain, to guide with compassion, to lift up each other. We must do more than offer sympathy. We must listen. We must show up. We must let our young people know that their lives matter, not only in words, but in action. Madam President, Bermuda is hurting, but Bermuda is also resilient. We have walked through storms before, and we can walk through this one together. Let us commit ourselves, not just with policies and programs, but with love and action, to build a safer, kinder, more hopeful island for every family, every child, every community. So today, Madam President, as I move this motion to adjourn, I ask that we do with a renowned sense of purpose. Let us leave here determined not just to debate policies, but to live out compassion. Let us reach out to those who are hurting. Let us invest in those who are at risk. Let us strengthen the bonds that make Bermuda not just a place, but a family. We need to go back to being a family, Madam President. We need to go back to the neighbors looking out for one another. We need to go back to the schools where we embrace our children. Madam President, I ask that each and every one of us in this chamber, you, Madam President, the AG, Minister Crystal Caesar, Senator Misha Fabler, Senator Lauren Haywood Bow, Senator Victoria Cunningham, Senator Dion Smith, Senator Tariq Smith, and Senator John White, and Senator Tawana Tannick. Let us not simply speak of solutions, but embody them. Let us show Bermuda that leadership is not just about policy, but about presence, compassion, and courage. When we walk out these doors, may our actions tell our people, we hear you, we see you, we are with you, and together we will not give up until peace is restored on our island. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Lindsay Simmons. Would any other senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none at this time, I would like to ask Madam AG, would she just repeat the date of our next meeting? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. We did get a communication from Mrs. Beale after her and I talked, and we let senators know we would hold the 24th of September. But now that we have actually had agreement and we have completed the bills, we'll no longer need to hold the 24th. I think some senators had a challenge with it in any event. So we understand that we will resume on the 29th, Monday the 29th.
Monday the 29th.
But it is likely to be a long day.
Thank you very much. And with that said, senators, the Senate stands adjourned now till Monday the 29th. Thank you all for your participation this morning.